I'm Cameron, and I grew up with a sister, Lily, who was always the center of attention. Our house was always filled with family, aunts, uncles, cousins, because everyone came to see Lily perform. My mom would make her famous barbecue, and Lily would sing or dance. The adults would cheer, and my parents would be proud. "Oh, Cameron," she gasped, holding the sleek phone in her hands. "This is too much." I smiled and pulled out my own phone. "Not at all. Now let me show you how to use it." Over the next few weeks, I taught Aunt Maggie how to use social media, and she picked it up quickly, especially loving Facebook's video feature. Soon, her page was filled with videos of her garden, her cat, and her famous apple pie. I would watch her posts during my lunch breaks and always leave a comment or a like. It became our way of staying connected, even when work kept me busy. I would watch from the sidelines, not wanting to be part of the spotlight. Every time I tried to sing or do something, I felt embarrassed because I wasn't good at it. My family would say I wasn't like Lily, and it was clear who was the favorite. Lily went to dance and singing classes, while I spent my time reading books alone. The only person who understood me was Great Aunt Maggie. She'd find me reading outside and would talk to me about my books, telling me how smart I was. With her, I didn't have to pretend or try to be like Lily. I could just be myself. But at home, things were hard. Lily always got praised, while I got ignored. I worked hard in school and became the top student, but no one noticed. When it was time for Lily to go to college, my parents were busy helping her, but I wanted to go to college too. I said it out loud, but they laughed and said they couldn't afford it. They told me I'd have to work after graduation. I was hurt, but I was determined. I worked even harder, studying late into the night. When graduation came, I was at the top of my class, but my parents still only cared about Lily. They didn't care about my grades. One day, Aunt Maggie asked me about my future. I told her that my parents couldn't help me go to college. She offered to give me her savings to help me, and I was overwhelmed with gratitude. Soon, I was graduating, and when my mom tried to give me a job waitressing at a restaurant, I told her I was going to college with Aunt Maggie's help. My parents were angry and didn't like that I was using Maggie's money for me instead of Lily. They tried to convince me to give the money to Lily, but I refused. Things got worse at home, and after a big fight, I called Aunt Maggie and told her everything. She told me to pack my bags because I was moving in with her. And that's how I started a new chapter of my life, with Aunt Maggie by my side. For the first time in my life, I felt truly successful when I got my first paycheck. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I walked into the electronics store and bought the newest smartphone for Aunt Maggie. Her face lit up when I gave it to her. One day, while I was getting ready for the dinner rush, my phone buzzed. I was surprised to see my mother's name on the screen since we hadn't spoken in years. "Cameron," she said hesitantly, "we were hoping you might come over to talk." After a long pause, I agreed. That Sunday, I found myself standing at the door of my childhood home. I hesitated before pressing the doorbell, but before I could, the door swung open. "Cameron," my mother said, pulling me into a hug. "It's so good to see you." Inside, I found my father, Lily, and a toddler I assumed was my niece. The atmosphere was tense but not hostile. My father said, "You look good, kiddo. We hear you're doing well for yourself." I nodded, still unsure, and said, "I'm a manager at the Gilded Fork now." Their eyes widened at the name of the restaurant, and my mom cleared her throat. "That's wonderful, dear. Actually, that's part of why we wanted to talk to you." Over the next hour, they apologized for how they'd treated me, admitting they'd been wrong to dismiss me. Then, my mom glanced at Lily and said, we were wondering if you might help Lily get a job at your restaurant." I looked at my sister, who was sitting with her daughter on her knee. She wouldn't look me in the eye. "I'll see what I can do," I said. Finally, "No promises, but I'll ask." True to my word, I spoke to Mr. Reeves, the restaurant owner, about Lily. To my surprise, he agreed to give her a chance as an administrator. Lily started the next week, and I watched her closely, expecting her to fail or cause problems. But to my surprise, she excelled. She was punctual, efficient, and customers loved her. Over time, we started to get along better at work. We weren't best friends, but we had a respectful working relationship. Then, just when I thought everything was going smoothly, Mr. Reeves called me into his office one day. My heart raced, wondering if I'd done something wrong, but instead, he grinned and asked, "Cameron, how would you like to help me expand the business?" Before I knew it, I was managing the opening of 3 new restaurants. My days became full of meetings, menu tastings, and number crunching. It was exhausting but exciting, and I was living the dream. The promotion came with a big pay raise, and suddenly I had more money than I knew what to do with. That's when the calls from my parents started. At first, it was small things. "The roof is leaking," Mom said. "Could you help out a little?" It felt good to say yes, to help solve their problems with just a few clicks on my phone. It started with the roof, then a new water heater, and soon I was paying for a complete home renovation. As their financial situation improved thanks to my support, the family parties started up again. But this time, things were different. "Have you heard about Cameron's latest project?" Mom would gush to the relatives. "She's opening a new restaurant downtown. We're so proud of her." I'd catch Lily's eye across the room, and she'd give me a small smile. She was doing well too, having been promoted to head administrator at the Gilded Fork. "My girls," Dad would say, putting an arm around each of us, both of them making their old man proud. Part of me wanted to be angry, to remind them how they treated me before, but a bigger part of me was just happy to finally have their approval. As I drove home that night, I felt a sense of peace. I had what I'd always wanted, success in my career and the love of my family. I was the golden child now, but more importantly, I was my own person, standing on my own 2 feet. But then, everything changed one lazy Sunday afternoon. I was scrolling through Facebook when I saw Aunt Maggie's new video. It was from a family gathering I had missed because of work. Smiling, I clicked play, expecting the usual family fun, but what I saw made my blood run cold. There were my parents, looking drunk, their faces flushed with alcohol. Mom was talking, slurring her words, but clearly saying, "And Cameron, that ungrateful little freeloader, she barely gives us anything. We're not made of money, you know." Dad chimed in, his face red. "That's right, we're doing just fine thanks to Lily. She's the one keeping this fancy restaurant afloat. Cameron just rides on his coattails." I stared at the video in disbelief. How could they say such horrible things after all I'd done for them, after all the money I'd given them? With shaking hands, I scrolled down to the comments. There were messages from my parents, demanding Aunt Maggie take the video down. But Aunt Maggie's reply made me burst into tears. "I don't know how to delete videos, and even if I did, I wouldn't. It's time everyone saw the truth about how you treat Cameron. She's the one supporting you, and this is how you repay her. Shame on you both." I sat there for hours, watching the video again and again, reading the comments. The betrayal hurt more than I could explain. Finally, I called Aunt Maggie. "I saw the video," I said, my voice breaking. "How could they do this to me?" She responded with anger in her voice. "They've always been like this, Cameron. You just didn't see it before. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but maybe it's for the best. You deserve to know the truth." We talked for hours, and Aunt Maggie comforted me as I cycled through shock, anger, and sadness. By the end of the night, I made a decision. I was cutting them off. No more money, no more help. They made their bed, and now they could lie in it. The next days were hard. My phone kept buzzing with messages from my parents, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. Finally, after a week, I sent them a text. "I've seen the video. I know what you really think of me. Don't contact me again. The money stops now." Their responses came fast. At first, they were sorry. "We didn't mean any of it. Please forgive us." But soon, they turned angry. "We're your parents. You owe us." Each message cut deeper, but I stayed strong. I had given them chance after chance, and they'd thrown it all away. It was time to end the cycle. Lily stayed out of it. At work, she was the model employee, but we didn't talk much outside of work. She said, "I'm not taking sides. It's between you and them." I was disappointed she didn't stand up for me, but I understood. She had her own life to focus on. As the months went by, I leaned on Aunt Maggie more than ever. Our Sunday video calls became the highlight of my week. She'd tell me about her garden or her latest baking adventure, helping me stay grounded. You're doing the right thing, Cameron, she'd say. Don't let them manipulate you anymore. To my surprise, other relatives started reaching out. Cousin Sarah sent me an email saying how amazing I was. Uncle Bob called me out of the blue to say he was proud of me. These messages of support helped heal the wounds in my heart. Then, one day, Mr. Reeves called me into his office. I was nervous, wondering if the family drama had affected my work. But instead, he smiled and said, "Cameron, I'm retiring next year. I want you to take over as CEO of the restaurant group." I stood there, speechless. Finally, I managed to ask, "Are you sure?" He nodded. "You've earned this, Cameron. You're the reason this business has grown. It's time for you to take the reins." As I left his office, my head spinning with excitement, I realized something important. The girl who had been overlooked and underestimated had grown into a woman who had exceeded everyone's expectations, including her own.